So my self-worth is based on me, not someone else's opinion of me. And that's how it should be.
Meet Shashi Naidoo, an entrepreneur, model, and TV personality.
There's this misconception that do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. There's a lot of things in entrepreneurship that I hate doing. I hate doing my accounting. I hate doing my tax. I hate all of these things. However, these are things that need to be done. I was working crazy hours. At one stage, I had a florist, I had an events company, I had the model agency, I was studying chiropractic, I was modeling myself. So I was literally functioning on like 3 or 4 hours sleep. It was just my way of life. And I didn't realize it was the pressure that I was putting on myself. My personal relationships were suffering with my family. I had no social life.
How did you learn to deal with that self-imposed pressure?
At that age, I measured success in wealth, and now my perception of success is slightly altered. I want to be well mentally, emotionally, as well as physically.
Personally, separation happens. How do you deal with that while balancing professional success and trajectory that you're on?
Honestly, I didn't even take the time to mourn. I didn't take time to mourn the loss. I had done all of this for the family for my family never have stuff. And now, I don't have kids now, but because in my 20s and my 30s, I was working like a dog. And that's okay. I've made peace with that. Everything comes at a sacrifice.
What support do you think that you needed back then, if any? Quick one. I've noticed that more than 70% of you who watch this channel on a regular basis are not subscribed. So please, wherever you're watching or listening to this, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps us with spreading this content to more people across this continent. Enjoy this episode. Or do you put pressure on yourself to have things figured out?
Yes, I do put pressure on myself I feel like I said, I've been successful, and it's only me, right? No one else really cares about you. We think everyone's watching to see what's next, but no one cares really. It's me that wants to, I guess when I started Ilushi Models, for example, at that stage, we're talking about over 20 years ago. Everything was so cookie cutter within the model industry. I'd just a few years before that, or a year before that, got discovered as a model. I was delivering flowers to an advertising agency. I walked in and they said, "Are you here to deliver the flowers?" And I said, "No, they said, "Are you here for the casting?" And I said, "What's a casting? I'm here to deliver your flowers." And then they said, "Oh, do you want to come in anyway?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I went in. That was my first casting. I booked that job. When I saw the paycheck, I was like, holy, is this when models get paid? So I then went on a mission to find a model agency, but everything was so absolutely cookie cutter. You had to be 173, you had to be a size 0. And I was like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because that is not what regular people look like. And surely clients would want diversity. And when I was on set, they were like, "Oh, it was great to work with you."
And this is like mid 2000s. So the idea of beauty was,
yes, the Kate Moss vibe. That was
magazine covers.
Yes, exactly. And there was only one type of model. So, even for myself, which is crazy in South Africa, that I was the first non-white on the cover of Cosmo, the first non-white on the cover of FHM. Like, how crazy in our country as diverse as us. So I thought, after not being able to find an agency, you know what, I'm going to create an agency that has diversity, that has people who are shorter, of color, and people ate it up. So that it was such a hugely successful venture that, we did really well. So now my next venture, I want to be as fulfilling. And really, it was hugely fulfilling for me to see that I was part of that process, because diversification was not even a word then. Now it is kind of a buzzword. We all know what it means. We all know about inclusivity, all of that. But it wasn't a thing back then. So I'm very proud that I was part of that.
And perhaps there's self-imposed pressure to make it a success as all your other ventures.
Absolutely. And I guess as an entrepreneur, you're meant to fail, because sometimes you learn equally from your failures, right? I was humbled. I just went to Dubai. I've been living in Dubai for the last 3 years, and I have had huge success in the Airbnb space here in South Africa, where I actually own and run and manage 4 Airbnbs. So I thought, I'm going to do this in Dubai and I'm going to be so successful. And wow, did I get taught a huge lesson. So sometimes you learn as much. I mean, it's a very hard lesson. Those school fees are high. But yeah, I think sometimes failure is important too.
I mean, this mentality. So, I want to go back to perhaps your formative years, because I believe that, the nature versus nurture argument, are we a product of our environment or are we in spite of our environment? So, how would you describe that kind of early nest that you were nurtured in, the kitchen that you were cooked in?
So nature versus nurture, I would say, listen, at 3 years old, I was already on my first business. So this entrepreneurial understanding, exchange of product for money, is it because I'm Indian? But I was literally making mud pies and selling the plain ones for 1 cent and decorating it with flowers and selling those for 2 cents. So I understood, I don't know how, this concept of exchange for money for product. And then at 6 years old, this is when you could still walk up and down the streets and, you knew all your neighbors in the area. I would collect shoes from I would go knock on their doors and say, would you like to have your shoe shine? So collect all the shoes, go home, polish them, and then return them and charge 10 cents for the service. So I was like, this hustle vibe, I think, has always kind of been in me. I did fail, though, at my business when I was 10, because the Cadbury's factory is in Port Elizabeth. So I would get the offcuts from Cadbury's, the damaged stuff, and then I'd package it into small little compartments and then sell it to my friends. This is when I learned a valuable concept of do not get high in your own supply, because I was eating all my profits. So,
but even this mentality of like, buying product and then selling it it for a higher price. Did you see that?
Is it an Indian thing? Because Indians are just naturally good salespeople. My mom was also, my mom inspires me. She only has a standard 7. And yet her acumen when it comes to finances and building and growing and in business, she's always got this thing. So perhaps seeing it, and then, my mom would make jewelry and now she's actually a financial advisor. But I've always seen that kind of hustle in my mom. And I think perhaps that is what either inspired me or rubbed off on me. I'm not sure.
What stories were you told? And the context of this question is, for me, it was very conservative in terms of, you go to school, you get your education, and then you get a job. And what's behind that is the stability aspect. Because my parents, grew up in apartheid.
Yes.
So it was very much about safety, security.
Yes.
And so that was kind of the seeds of that wisdom was planted to me.
Well, for sure. that is kind of immigrant mentality all over the world, that you have the first generation come in and they just work like slaves to provide better so that the product of those can then educate their children, right? And that's how we third generation. So that's how it works almost everywhere with immigrant mentality. And I know on my mom's side of the family, like there may be 25 cousins, 20 have doctor in front of, including me, have doctor in front of our name. So my nickname was Doc since I was 3 years old. So they wanted that for us. And whether I was an academic or not, and I certainly was not, for me to get into that really almost broke me, because I had to study so much harder than necessarily my peers, because I'm not necessarily an academic. I'm someone who's a creative. So I formulated the drama society. So all my passions were really not academic based, but to kind of live up to what my parents' expectations or what they really thought was best for me. I proved my love by doing well in school, doing that kind of thing, because they did not see success in any other form. And it's kind of understandable, right? Because from where they came from, being a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, that was your only way of guaranteeing the success. And my mom, while she is in her own right a very successful business person, she thought, because I'm not educated, this is what I do. I have to hustle. I don't want you to have to worry about where things come from. And in a way, it's fair, because whilst I'm not practicing as a chiropractor, I think any form of tertiary education, I think it's important. It teaches you a way of applying your mind to problems differently. You know, people who have had this university experience, we're able to, there's a shift that happens in you at university.
The safety aspect for me is really interesting. As you mentioned, the immigrant mentality. But the cost of that perhaps is, what is it doing to the child, right? Because you mentioned there that, you perhaps received love from achieving and, getting those good grades in school, hustling to actually, start businesses.
Yes.
So perhaps the cost is wanting to achieve to prove that you are worthy of love. But the benefit of that is you started so many entrepreneurs, so many businesses.
I mean, I think also this is like, look, Indian parents can be very, very tough, as I'm sure you know, that unless you're doing well at school. And so I think it also teaches you a valuable lesson for life. Often you're going to do things that you hate, that you do not like, but you just got to do it, So I think there's this misconception that, okay, the saying like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Maybe that some people think that means if I'm going to eat pizza and lay on the beach all day, then I'm like, I'm waiting for my money to come. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things in entrepreneurship that I hate doing. I hate doing my accounting. I hate doing my tax. I hate all of these things. However, these are things that need to be done. So even if it, so even though I'm not an academic, I had to work, I think, twice as hard as most people, it instilled in me that to be successful, I'm often going to have to work twice as hard as other people. Yes, the emotional trauma of having, love given if you're academically inclined, you get over, I think, as an adult. But yes, I did feel that. I did definitely feel that as a child growing up, because my sister was academically inclined. And, my parents definitely showed that she was the kind of favorite. But I think I'm the favorite now.
Do you see that kind of popping up in your, everyday life? The cost of that. And, context to this is, I feel like everything I do, I have to do it at like here. And it has to be big. Nothing, just doing something for the sake of doing it is like not enough. There has to be some ambition.
Absolutely. Before we started, we were talking about how important it is, because you asked me, what are my plans kind of now? What am I working on? And I said, I've been in a 25-year period of building, and like just really having to have this ultra success. And then I now question, why is it so important, right? Why is it so important to me to prove that I'm this big entrepreneur, and then like, and that if I lose something, or if I don't do well at something, like I literally, when you asked me to come on this podcast, I was like, the African CEO, like I'm not, am I good enough to be on a podcast called The African CEO? So, just because, and solely because I'd failed at one business venture in Dubai, which is crazy, right? And now I'm in this period of actually enforced, I'm going to rest, take some time out, because it's as important as building and growing and all the rest. So yes, there's this intense pressure, and especially once you do well in something, but you've got to also take the time out to rest, refocus, group, go within, the emotional part of your growth journey, right? You have to go inward for that, and it requires time out a little bit. So sometimes we get so wrapped up in the I'm building and I'm this empire that we forget to go inward, and that's a journey of its own.
How did you learn to deal with that self-imposed pressure?
At the time, I never realized I was under pressure. You're just doing, right? You get stuck in a routine, and I don't even think I realized at the time, like I was working crazy hours. Like, at one stage I had a florist. So I was waking up at 4 in the morning, going to the flower market. I had an events company. I had the model agency. I was studying chiropractic. I was modeling myself. And so I was literally functioning on like 3 or 4 hours sleep. And it was just my way of life. And I didn't realize it was the pressure that I was putting on myself. My personal relationships were suffering with my family, like I had no social life. So it took a long time for me to realize that's actually not normal. I was called out multiple times by my family saying that like you have to have some sort of balance. But now I know. And now, to be fair, I'm also now 44 and able to travel and to do all the things. So if you are going to put in that kind of hard work, I'm grateful I did it at that stage of my life.
Do you think that, or better question to ask is, what do you think was driving you back then? Because you studied, and while you were studying, you mentioned there you were working multiple jobs. You got casted to get your first modeling gig, and yet you continue to pursue all these different ventures and have these side hustles while studying. What do you think was driving you?
Honestly, if I'm to be honest, I think a little bit of trauma, and not crazy trauma. Everything is relative. But I remember when I was in high school, like we don't come from a lot of money. And like I said, I was not academically inclined. It's such a silly story, but I had earned an academics blazer in my last, like I had like maybe 6 months left of high school, but because I had worked my butt off, and for me to get that was so much harder than I thought anyone, because I really had to put in the work. And my parents, and I was like our blazer's brown, and then it becomes this white blazer, and I was so excited, and they're like, we're not getting that blazer. And I was so mad, and I cried and I cried. And and it's silly, but I said, when I have children, they're never going to have to go through this. And I'm going to make sure that I've got enough money to do all these things. So it was a little bit of a trauma. I don't know why that stuck with me, but I didn't want to ever be, or for me to lack anything, or for my family to lack anything for lack of money. So you get so trapped in like building, growing, so for me, I think that was it. I've dealt with it now.
Super interesting story. I think that you hit the nail on the head, because I've been speaking to a lot of people, and I have this theory, and perhaps this is also backed by research. The ones that become really successful and go on to do big things, it really stems from a traumatic experience, a chip on your shoulder.
I feel terrible because there are people who are going through genuine trauma. It's just in my mind what stuck out with me. So I feel bad saying traumatic event.
But it's valid for you.
Yeah, it's a memory that stuck in my mind and stayed with me and pushed me,
That was your reality. You
Yes.
experienced it. And yes, perhaps if you zoom out in perspective and people are going through worse things.
Yes.
But at that time, that 16, 17-year-old Shashi was like, I want that blazer.
I earned that blazer.
and I feel like, we then, to our own, call it toxic fuel, we use that to then go and do big things.
Yes.
And for me, I think that's healthy to a point.
Yes.
Because once you achieve everything.
But once, like I said, you go onto a little bit of autopilot of that is all you know. You only know how to just give everything, not 100%, but 200%. It's not normal to be waking up at 3 in the morning to be at the flower market by 4, then go to get all your flowers delivered and go to university and then do events. Like, that's not a normal way of life. But that fuel that drove you, then it just becomes pattern after a habit.
100%. And you mentioned, your relationships, family, whatever personal relationships was taking a toll. So for me, at what cost are we striving and wanting to achieve this big thing? What's the
because
sacrifice?
Ultimately, I had done all of this for the family for my family never have stuff. And now, I don't have kids now, but because in my 20s and my 30s, I was working like a dog. And that's okay. For me, I've made peace with that. But everything comes at a sacrifice.
Did you enjoy the the modeling part of your career?
I, as a model and as a TV presenter, I got to see so many amazing things. I've been to 43 countries. Sure, but now maybe 46 countries. And so many of them through modeling and presenting, and just the wonderful experiences I've made, the friendships I've made. I mean, yeah, and you really, at that point, we were really being overpaid for what we were doing, because now there's been a huge shift in the industry. Social media has changed things a lot, where budgets are going more to social media people. But I mean, back then we were making like 200,000 Rand for a day's work for an MTN campaign. The same campaign now would pay 5,000, because the budgets have shifted in where money is being allocated. They've people aren't doing print press anymore, like spending as much on TV commercials, because they get influencers to create the work, and the reach is far greater. So, but I mean, we were just being paid stupid money to essentially just and go to the most beautiful islands, the most beautiful locations. So yeah, it was fabulous. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And did acting come from the modeling?
So I've always been a bit dramatic. So when I got into the modeling thing, someone said to me, you should try TV presenting. And I actually, like I said before, started the drama society at my school. So I'd always been putting on, there was that girl that put on plays for my parents. I used to write the plays, and I enjoyed both sides of it. So I would like write plays, have all my cousins perform them. So I enjoyed the creative process of drama, the making something go from paper to life. I love that. So acting kind of was just, there's videos of me at 3 years old interviewing my 2-year-old cousin, and like interviewing Roger McEnroe, and he was like, McEnroe, really funny home videos. So I don't know, it was kind of something in me. And then again, finding an agency to represent me was the difficult part, because you need experience to get an agent, and how do you get experience without an agent? But eventually, through just me not giving up, I phoned a couple of times. Then I went they said no, and I went there and I said, look, give me a chance. I'm here. Just like, let's make.
Was this for acting or modeling?
Yes, acting. Okay. Acting, because you don't really need experience to be a model, but with acting you certainly do. And that was, I joined, and then they just couldn't believe how irritating I was. I think they thought, well, if she's like this with us, she'll definitely go to all her auditions. And a week later, I booked my first TV show, which was 20-something. And geez, that was a good ride. Like, yeah, amazing.
And at that point in your career, were you thinking about, the big picture, and this is what you want for your life? What was going through your mind?
At that point, because I was still a student, honestly, I thought I was going to be a chiropractor. I thought all of these were just fun ventures. I was looking at the financial aspect, if I must be honest. Like, I was more in like, oh, this is what this pays. Because remember, even at the same time, I was doing promos. I was standing outside Fish, handing out fish, saying like outside the fishaways. So for 25 Rand an hour. So I was just doing whatever I could to be in the best placement financially after I finished, because I knew, yes, it's one thing to qualify as a chiropractor, but I'm going to need to set up my clinic, and I knew that was going to cost a lot of money. So I was financially preparing myself to be a chiropractor. But then obviously it got to a point after like opening, because I opened my model agency in my 5th year of study, and it got to a point where the income was being far surpassed anything any chiropractor could make, absolutely. But yeah, I just thought these were all fun, exciting things that were going to start me on my journey towards being a chiropractor.
Also think about like why people start businesses, right? Mm-hmm. And the ones that really start and then become successful. So we spoke about pain points and really solving a problem. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the problem there wasn't enough agencies that were representing people.
There were no
color.
Agencies at that time.
Was that
absolutely zero. So I saw that, and I understood, well, I don't think, and I had no idea how successful we'd be. I just didn't realize how much, because here were all these agencies providing the exact same model, white, 173, and size zero. They were all supplying the same thing, but clients actually wanted something different. But clients didn't know they wanted something different because that was all that was available. So I then took on, I would literally walk through Rosebank, go to the malls and scout people and people that looked like everyday people. And now every single agency in South Africa has an everyday people division or a character division, people who look different. Because obviously, I mean, ads literally were the same person as you flip through magazines. So now they've got all of that. They want people with a nose ring or, crazy hair. But yeah, so that was an important part, like seeing that there is a demand in the market. And that's when you have success, really finding the niche.
Was there a lot of rejection that you faced?
Oh, there's rejection in everything, right? Like I said, with my acting agency, I called them 3 times. They said, no, sorry, you don't have experience. And then I called again and I said, look, they just said flat out no. And then I went there. I literally said, I was not taking no for an answer. And as a model, oh my goodness, that's all you get is rejection, right? It's a numbers game. So if you go to 20 castings, what are your percentages of getting the job? I think it is probably more difficult with modeling because they talk about you as if you're not even in the room. Like, oh, her nose might be a little bit big, her coloring, oh, her eyebrows are very thick. So they'll literally say all of these things while you are in the room, which I think, and that's, I think, problematic because most models start at a really young age.
How damaging is that to one's self-esteem?
Yeah, so I wasn't all that young when I started. Look, it does hurt. So I think I have a particularly thick skin. But if you're going into modeling at 15, because some of these girls start at 14, I think it can be very damaging. And when you're basing all your self-esteem on what somebody else thinks of you, because that's not self-esteem. Self-esteem is your own confidence, your own self-worth. But when you're basing it on what somebody else thinks of you, that becomes problematic, right?
Yeah, and taking what they say personally and identifying with that thing. Mm-hmm. So if someone's telling you, like, literally, we're not choosing you because of your nose, and you take that personally.
Yeah.
That's...
Yes, because also beauty is such a transient thing, right? It's here and then poof, it's gone. So if you're basing your self-worth on beauty, which is really, that's why I don't think anybody should start modeling until they are in their 20s, because you've already developed who you are innately as a person. I think by then, your confidence, your self-esteem, no, I don't think anyone can really break you down at that age. But at 14, remember what you were like, right? You just wanted to be the same as everyone else. You wanted approval. I remember because I was obviously, I matriculated in 97. So I was one of the first group of non-whites to be accepted into a white school. But that was in standard 5. I still call it standard. You can see my age. That was in grade 7.
6, 7.
Yeah. No, 6. You're right. Correct. And then it was tough times because and there were only 2 of us, only 2 Indians in this white school. And she was like a genius, Jayshni Chetty, I remember. She was this genius academic and I was like just trying my best. I don't even know how I got in. But it was very difficult. You wanted to be like everybody else. So you knew what it was to be different. So at that age, you really are just trying to fit in and you want acceptance. So going into an industry where literally they will tell you you're not good enough for this reason and to say like, yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
Do you think that because of that experience, you find it easy to now be in any environment and fit in?
Yes, we all have that chameleon in us, right? I'm sure you experienced the same. But I think, to be fair, that's my personality, where I can go into any sort of group. And I think it's exposure as well, because my mom also worked a lot in the location. So I had a lot of, and she would always take me with her to work. So she worked in the location. So being able to kind of adapt to any sort of environment for me has kind of been easier than most. And perhaps you're right. I've never really thought about it. Perhaps you're right in that regard. Knowing when to fit in. And it's an important skill to have.
I think that adapting is key for different environments, but it's not going against who you are innately. And I think once we start being inauthentic, that becomes problematic because we're one person with our friends and family and then a completely different person in business. And I'm not saying that, you are supposed to be your true authentic self at all times. Sorry, you are supposed to be your true authentic self at all times, but like the level at which you conduct yourself in a professional environment, of course, is different from a social environment.
Core values will always remain the same within business, within friendships, within family, but the level to which you let your boundaries, that changes, like how you treat your staff as opposed to how you treat your family. Like these are all different things, right? But I think your core values will remain the same, but again, you are adaptable to the environment that you're in.
Was there a point where you started going inward and, putting the internal work and doing internal work on yourself so that you can, be in the world?
So my mother actually, for me, I thought it was all hocus pocus, honestly. But my mother, at quite a late age in her life, relatively, became very spiritual. With Sai Baba, Satgurus, so she's just obsessed with these things. So it became our thing to then go to the ashram every year, doing meditation. And so it didn't come from me, but obviously through my mother, I've learned more on the spirituality side and going inward. And it's important. It's important work to do.
How beneficial was that for you? How did it, help you?
Just being able to take a breath, to not react. I'm really not reactive to situations. And I know this to be true because so much has happened in the last year with me, like the craziest things, and understanding that, yes, these things happen, but how I choose to respond to it is my choice. So that is so important. It's such a valuable lesson to understand, because I really believe that my happiness is my choice. It's a choice that I make every morning. So previously things would happen and I would get upset, and my emotions were controlled by things external to myself. I believe that what was happening around me controlled how I was, if I was happy, if I was sad. And that's not me anymore. My response to all the things happening around me is really my choice. Did you understand?
100%.
Yeah.
So there's a fulfillment that comes with practicing that.
Yes.
Because you taking control and responsibility for your
Yes.
actions and how you react to things. So therefore, you also, as you mentioned, in control of your happiness. I love that.
And it's work. It's honestly, it's work like anything else. You've got to practice it. You've got to sit with yourself. Sometimes these things hurt, but people think that spiritual enlightenment doesn't just come. And I'm not saying I'm spiritually enlightened anyway, but I've come a long way. And it like anything else requires work. It requires practice.
It also helps with knowing what you truly want from a bigger purpose point of view. Because if you go inward and block out the noise on the outside, you truly feel called to do something, that thing.
I think everyone's ultimate calling in this world is happiness. Isn't that what we all strive for? I think to just be happy, to be at peace, to be content. Certain people think, okay, I will be content if I have 10 million in my bank account. So people's understanding of what happiness is different. However, I think the ultimate goal for all of us is happiness, really.
Even that the 10 million, what's behind that is perhaps freedom and happiness.
Freedom and happiness. So they might get there and realize, actually, I'm not happy at all, So as we grow, that picture changes.
Going back into your journey.
Yes.
Accolades.
Oh.
Back then, was that something that drove you?
No, not at all, because I never got into it's not like so I think one of the biggest accolade was also, doing cover of Sports Illustrated, #1 sexiest woman in the world. I mean, that was a mind blowing. I was like, what? Now remember, I grew up with teenage acne, braces, and a monobrow. So to go from that to then at that moment where they called me and said, oh, the votes have all come in, you're voted the sexiest woman in the world. And I was like, what? Because it was not even on my radar. And all these things were wonderful and great. And I don't even think I took in the time to even appreciate it that much. Like, it was a big deal. Like now kind of, it's now I'm actually realizing what a great achievement. But at the time it was like, great, because my focus was different then. Great. I did as many appearances as possible so that I could make as much money from that as possible. I didn't even take the time to really take it in. Like, oh, wow. But I don't think you ever were, well, I didn't, certainly. I didn't think it was something that was possible at that time.
And, the weight of being the first person of color to win that award, did you feel it?
Look, coming from the Indian community, when I first chose to pose in a bikini in FHM, don't think that was an easy thing, right? Do you know how much flack I got online from my family? Not my immediate family. My parents have always been extremely supportive of whatever I've chosen to do. But my extended family, really, really took offense to me posing in a bikini, because remember, at that stage, there was no Indian girl doing that. It was only me. So, I mean, now I think all these little Indian girls must thank me because they have a lot more freedom to be who they are.
They don't just have to be in a sari anymore.
Exactly. Because, it was a big deal. I got into a lot of trouble, and that was not acceptable behavior. I remember doing an online kiss even with my co-star. Woo! Did I get flack for that? My mom's phone, they don't call me, and they call my mom saying, how can you let your daughter do this? It's disgusting. But I got a lot of flack. But then once I got to #1, all the Indians owned me. That's our girl. That's our girl. So, which is great, because it was a perception change, a mind shift. People were proud of me. But when you first start in that space, there's always going to be a little bit of fight back. And I just was at that point so razor focused on, I'm like, it was all noise to me, background noise. I didn't really care.
And now, dealing with whatever criticism and whatever people say, because I mean, social media, it's so easy now to post a comment from a fake profile. You don't have the decency to show yourself and who you really are. And now
those keyboard warriors
trolling.
So look, some of it, I mean, I'm no stranger to social media. I think everyone remembers this in 2018 when I was in Ibiza and I was with Black Coffee, and I posted a picture of Black Coffee, and I got a comment about, he's a Zionist, how can you post a picture with him? And I'm like, what is it even? I was so ill-informed at the time. And I then said, because he'd chosen to perform in Israel, and I said, I'm sure he thinks that music should bring the world together, not separate. And then she wrote this comment back, and I didn't even know where the West Bank was. I didn't know Gaza. I didn't know nothing. So I screenshot that comment and sent it to 3 friends who I thought were very educated, who would be. And one friend wrote back this long, long, long thing. Now, I'm in Ibiza, right, on a, I can say the brand. I was with an alcohol brand at a club. It was 6 a.m, and I'm like seeing with one eye, like, this looks very clever, because it starts with a 1948 da, 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 da. And obviously from my mind's perspective, Jewish people can do no wrong. I mean, they've been through the Holocaust. Like, I was like, obviously they're on the correct side of this. Of course they are. So I copy paste. The next morning, my entire world fell apart. Like, literally I had people banging down my door. But it was on me to listen to what people were saying. And it's okay. It really is okay to say, oh my God, I did not know any of this. It's okay to say, I've changed at that point, to be honest, I was uneducated. I then went to were tempted to go to the West Bank. I was then spent time in Jordan in the refugee camps. I really educated myself. So I feel, yes, these online comments or whatever, because I really took it, right? I had death threats. I had the rest of it. And I'm like, but why are people so angry with me? And so people like say, oh, you can make you can't make a back turn. Of course you can. If you educate yourself on something, you also need to be able to say, I was uneducated on a topic. I've now educated myself. This is where I stand.
Yeah, I mean, it's taking responsibility. I think that
Of course.
not many people give flowers for the act of taking responsibility for something that perhaps you did wrong in the eyes of society.
And for me, I understood that. I think I had a huge sense of guilt because my life philosophy is like, knowing and understanding, because I had no knowledge of it. And then once you actually educate yourself and then you realize, then you go back onto what that comment that was like, the whole like copy paste. When I read that, I was like, oh my, now I really get why people were so mad at me, because when you know. So, sometimes, yes, it's important to look. So even like you said, like looking at comments, how much does it affect me? Sometimes you have to listen, like, because at that stage I needed to listen because it helped me understand and educate myself. The other stuff, when people are just like ugly for no reason, I also, like, sometimes you have to take a deep breath and realize, where is this coming from? That is their own hurt, their own projection of their pain. Because honestly, if you're in a happy space, you do not take the time out to write how ugly someone is or how whatever. You don't insult another female, you would never do that. If you have happiness within inside you, like, you wouldn't take the time. So you ultimately, I delete, block, and understand that it's their own pain. It's not, I'm not going to make it my pain. I'm certainly not going to take that in.
How did you realize that? Because even to realize that it's their own hurt that they're projecting onto you, it takes a secure person.
I don't know what I would have done if social media were around when I was a teenager. I honestly don't know, because like we were talking about, I don't believe people should start modeling until their 20s because you are not assured. I have friends with teenagers, and like the stuff they get, they're dealing with the same things that we are dealing with, and it's hurtful things. So I don't know if I would have been that secure, but that comes with time, the work that I've put in. And again, self-confidence, self-esteem is based on what I think of so my self-worth is based on me, not someone else's opinion of me. And that's how it should be. But that's come with growth, with time. So man, I don't know what I'd do if I was a teenager, like, and having to deal with all of the fame and social media wasn't a big thing when I was when I was in my heyday, should we call it.
Yeah, I also think it's the insecurity part, because I mean, we all have insecurities that we worked on and currently still working on. Perhaps there's going to be more that pop up in the future.
So honestly, because it is when people hit a little bit of a nerve, right? That's because I remember I did post this the other day, and I'm like, I've been receiving like a lot of comments, although I think it's the same person with multiple fake accounts, saying that my once beautiful face is now distorted and ugly. And I'm like, and I said, guys, I was first on your screens 24 years ago on a show called 20-something. I'm 40-something now. Let me live. Can I not age? It's okay. I'm okay with it. Can you be okay with it, please? So I made that post, even just like, think about it. I should be allowed to age. This is a natural process. But maybe it slightly hits a nerve with me that I chose, because I don't want to age, but it is a natural process. And like I said, beauty is such a transient thing. You'll have it and then sure, it's gone. So you better hope that here you've done the work, right?
Is that something that you struggle with, like the aging part?
Not, I understand it's like that. It's here for today and it will be gone tomorrow. So best you do the internal work so that your mind and your heart are radiate, because like my mom is 75 and she's more beautiful than ever, but because she has this inward glow that just, like, really everyone who meets her is so blown away with her, because her beauty it transcends physical appearance. She's just, and that's what I want. That's what I strive for. That when I walk into a room, my beauty is something that radiates from within me. Because you have people that are on that vibration, high vibrational people, that just when they walk into a room, people notice, they're aware of them because it comes from here, right?
Yeah, I also think you get to a point where you also don't care. That's what people tell me. It's like,
Yes.
after a certain age, like, you just don't care.
You just let it
You
go.
just do your thing.
I don't know about that. I'm still going for the Botox. I'm fighting the process, right?
But I mean, it's not just a beauty thing, because I had limiting beliefs around what aging is like, because I saw people in my family that once they hit 65, 70, health just deteriorated. Until I understood that the choices that we make in our 20s and 30s basically would determine your quality of life in your 60s and 70s. And that was like a major shift for me. I'm super excited to share that I've teamed up with Latitude Podcast Studio and podcast coach and industry pro, Shaun Lutz. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your podcast to the next level, Shaun has the tools and experience to help you get there. Head over to ShaunLutz.com to book your free call today. Back to the episode.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, even more so now in your 40s, it would be more important because do you remember like I don't know how old you are, but when in my day,
30.
Okay, you're young, right? But in my day of like everyone smoked. Everyone, literally, it like most people, half the people I knew smoked, especially like university, in the model industry, everybody smoked. So on set, now nobody smokes on set, right? There's vaping and what, but you noticed. For example, in people in their 20s, do you know that like every 10 years, every cell in your body like rejuvenates, replicates? But so you're given this chance in your 20s where people that can smoke throughout their 20s and then in their 30s still look fine. But have you noticed people who smoke from 30 to 40, because your cell replication process is complete, it almost comes, like at 30 it slows down drastically, and at 40 it almost comes to a grinding halt, right? So you're allowed to make a lot of mistakes. You can go on wild parties, you can like abuse your body a little bit in your 20s. In your 30s, you're starting to feel the effects of that. In your 40s, you have to pay respect to your body, otherwise you will see those effects later on in life. When I first stepped foot into a gym when I was in my late 20s, like maybe 29, and I did it for vanity. Honest to God, I hated every second of being in that gym. I hated it, but I did it for vanity. Now, I do not gym for vanity. I do it because of how it makes me feel, how my body feels. I want to be able to carry my groceries into my house when I'm 80. I do it for myself and for the right reasons. And now it's not a chore anymore. I love it. I love going because it's a mental shift of why I'm sitting there, why I'm putting in the work.
It almost seems as if there has to be that shift as to understand the deeper reason why.
Yes, exactly.
And then, once you understand it, then you take action and now you're training every day. But what happens on those days where like you don't feel like
then I don't go. To be honest with me, gym feels like brushing my teeth. It's just something that happens. I do brush my teeth first, and then I put on my gym clothes, and then I go to gym. If my body is telling me, so it's just a natural thing that happens as part of my morning process. I find doing it in the morning is the best thing because your brain cannot, especially when you're a busy person, you will make 1,000,001 excuses not to get to the gym if you leave it for later in the day. This is more important. A lot of other things are going to take priority. So for me, it's exactly the same habit as I would brush my teeth. I then go into my gym drawer, and that's how I start my day. If my body is telling me not to go, I'm going to listen because it means I shouldn't be at the gym. I mean, if your body's telling you every day you don't want to go, then there's a problem. But it becomes motivation can only take you so far, right? Because you've got to motivate yourself. Yes, I'm going to do it. Psych yourself up. But then after 21 days, a month of doing this, it becomes habitual. It's no longer about needing to motivate yourself. It's just a habit.
Yeah, 100%. Because it's exactly that. I changed my routine from like training first thing in the morning to going and splitting my day up. So I'll train like at 12. And it makes a big difference. But there's some days where I really have to fight my mind. and have
Yes.
those battles.
Yes.
Because I know the benefit of going and how I feel afterwards. And so that's what I focus on instead of like
Sure.
being like,
And I'm sure with that like endorphin rush, the rest of your day just goes so much better. I mean, I've recently started being able to do like a midday thing, and I've noticed afterwards, actually I have so much more energy in the gym. But I still need to do it in the morning just to keep to my routine. But the days that I do go in the middle of the day, you actually have more energy, and the rest of your day you're more psyched.
100%. I think it's also like finding what works for you
Yes.
and then doubling down.
Yes.
Going back a bit,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like at this point, I think it's perhaps in the like mid 2000s, 2011 comes along.
Yes.
And it seems like everything is going well career wise.
That was the year
covers.
I won FHM 100 Sexiest. That was, I think, the same year I won Tropica Island of Treasure. I don't know if you know what that is. That was this reality TV. It's still in existence.
I've heard of it.
Yes. So they take 10 celebrities, you go to an island, and it's like Survivor, except you're staying in a 5-star hotel. So all the challenges are the same. The social element is the same. And then you compete for R1 million. In my year, Trevor Noah was in my year.
Wow.
So that was really cool. But I won. So 2011 was a really good year for me.
Personally,
Yes.
separation happens. How do you deal with that while balancing the professional success and trajectory that you're on?
I feel remember when we spoke about there was sacrifice with all the things that I achieved. It came at a sacrifice. So remember at that point I was running, there was so much going on, my career, and multiple businesses, doing community service, putting in those hours, and how do you do a marriage, right? I literally did choose that over my husband. It showed there was no personal time. And, at the time I felt like I was making money. He could just sacrifice and just come with me and do all of those things. But as a man, I mean, is that really fair to him? So I was wanting him to like travel with me and do these things with me. But he, so there was a lot of distance created, and mostly because of work. So yeah, I think the separation was inevitable. And honestly, I didn't even take the time to mourn. I didn't take time to mourn the loss. And a lot of the things that even happened to me when, I had a break-in at my house, and I didn't take the time to go to therapy because there's no time. So now I'm really at a point where these kind of things, you make time, because for me, unless it was physical injury, but these things that you can't see, I would not fix it. So now at this late age, I'm having to do the inner work and realizing how important your mental well-being is to being a successful person. At that age, I measured success in wealth, in owning things, and now my perception of success has slightly altered. I want to be well mentally, emotionally, as well as physically.
What support do you think that you needed back then, if any?
To be honest, the support was all around me. I just never took it. I had my parents that always wanted to be there for me. I had friends that wanted to be, and I just never took the support or leaned on people, which now I have no problem doing. Even if something would go, I was so hyper independent that if something went wrong with my car, I would do it myself. I wouldn't call my husband and say, listen, I'm stuck on the side of I wouldn't do those things. So now I've learned that taking help, it's important. And people want to feel needed, valued as well.
I think something that I also think about is, as you mentioned there, striving and doing all the things. But if you value relationship and, wanting to be in a romantic relationship and a thriving one, not just like one that's on the side, how does one kind of find the harmony between putting time into cultivating that relationship, and not just romantic, friendships, family, plus still striving for the big things?
So I was listening to Warren Buffett the other day, and he said the most important decision you'll make in your entire life is finding the partner that you want, right? So I think these, aside from the romantic love that you have with this person, I think you guys have got to want to grow together. You can't just be physically attracted to this person. So, for example, this needs to be someone that you also value their, like, that you're headed in the same direction, that you can come home and discuss business objectives, like as you're growing together, you have the same interests. So if you're on a path of material success, devoting yourself to the workplace, like devoting yourself to one thing, and this person's on a completely different path, I don't think that's going to work. But if you find a partner that you're able to talk to, and I feel that about work things, that is genuinely excited about your visions and your the things that you're doing, but genuinely has interest in those things, I think that makes a good fit. Because if that is your path, that's always going to be your path, right? But if someone has no interest in that or doesn't want to hear about it, I don't know, that creates difficulty, disharmony, and then you separate. You've got to have aligned interests. And I think if you feel like you're doing this and growing together towards the same end goal, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, really good point. And I think it's also the mutual understanding. I must understand where my partner is at, and vice versa. And I think that what I've seen and experienced from others is there's no mutual understanding. There's only expectations without willing to give.
For example, you'll have a doctor who has like really, really long hours. If they're doing like they're specializing, whatever, and then you have a partner that's always complaining about it. Like, there needs to be also some sort of conversation about, why am I doing this? Where are we going? These sacrifices that I'm making now are for us. And like a conversation, you need to be on the same page, because so many couples like fight about this. Oh, you don't make enough time for me. But then this partner, honestly, if all you're doing is complaining, are they going to want to come home to you? So it's important. These conversations need to happen really early in your relationship. Like, do we want to be, are we going towards the same place financially? Do we have the same mentality regarding that? Spiritually, do we see things the same? Like, these really important to discuss these things.
Yeah, we're not taught these things, are we?
No, and you don't talk about it. All you think is like, yeah, you're like physically. We focus a lot on the physical and like, can I handle you? But everything else. But these long-term things of like, where do you want to be when you're 50, when you're 60, when you're 80? We don't discuss these things. Yeah.
And even in the now, like, what does the next 5 years look like, and how can I support?
Yes.
How can I support you in achieving that?
Absolutely. And I think that's more important. Not how can your partner support you. I think if you have a relationship where you're both thinking, how can I support my partner? And the other one's thinking, how can I support that person? That's a successful relationship. If you're constantly thinking about what you can get from a relationship, that's generally when relationships fall apart.
100%. And of course, like, at the base is, as you mentioned, the interest part.
Yeah.
The friendship. Like,
Yes.
that's how I would define it.
Yes.
Going into your entrepreneurship pursuits.
Yes.
We spoke about, why you started your agency and how were you able to grow it?
When you get into the agency, it's about finding clients. And it's about finding models, because you need clients and then you need the models to supply. So again, like, because I was discovered as, when I started doing flowers, I did mainly advertising agencies, because the flowers I was doing at the time, again, a niche, because at that time, which was like 24 years ago, there were all these just like summer, like, with a baby's breath and the hideous things. People weren't, but I traveled I'd gone overseas for the first time when I was 15, and I went to Paris with my parents, and I saw these beautiful, like, abstract creations and the things people could actually do with flowers, which we didn't see here at all. And so I saw niche. There was an opportunity to start something. So I would call myself a floral architect. I'm so pretentious, but I said I was a floral architect. And I went to ad agencies in the beginning, and I gave them a free arrangement. And I said, look, would you like me to do this work for you? And I showed them. So that's how I was working with a lot of ad agencies. So I had these contacts already within the ad agency. And if I didn't, again, I think the best advice I can ever give to anyone is to say, you will never die from hearing the word no. I'll repeat that. You cannot die from hearing the word no. If you ask, that's all you can do. Because a lot of us are so scared of the rejection. Like, is it going to kill me? No, it won't. So that's what I would do. I would literally cold call. If I was not having luck with cold calling, I would make an appearance there, take a little because we had the flower gift anyway, take them something. And that's how I got my clients. And then models, I would just go around, walk around. Like, I was always scouting. So if I was at industry, if I was constantly always scouting, always had my eyes open, give them a business card. And yeah, so that's how I built my model base. And that's how I built my...
3 things that like my takeaways from what you just said. So the first being dealing with the rejection. And we spoke about this earlier. Like, it's not the end of the world. The second thing there is persistence. I feel like you're a very persistent person.
Yes.
I think that's a key trait to success.
Exactly.
You have to be persistent. And then the third thing there is relationships, building your network and dealing with
and
people.
Maintaining those relationships. It's important, like how you conduct yourself in business. And remember, it's a long life, right? One of the reasons why I think Alushi had success, and we were also chatting again before we started filming, is that when I sold Alushi models, I didn't allow them to keep the name Alushi because I know that after 17 years of owning that agency, I'd built respect, I'd built credibility. And now I'd then had Alushi Aesthetics, the same name. I have Alushi Foundation, which is doing charity work. There was no way I was going to take a risk on someone owning an agency and destroying that brand. So how you conduct yourself in business is so important. Managing those relationships, managing them well, having ethics, because your name is your name, and it's the only name you're going to have.
Reputation.
Yes, that reputation is so important because people do things and think it's okay to just cut corners. No, it's really not. It will always come back to bite you. So maintaining integrity in business, I think, is also important. Giving a good service. That is why people carried on using me. I never once withheld money from a model. So these things are important in terms of also growth. People need to remember that because sometimes it's easier to think, oh, I'll make a quick buck extra here, there. No.
Have strong values in place and abide by them. It doesn't matter what you may see in the short term. Okay.
Exactly.
And something I also think about is, I'm pretty sure that you didn't do it alone. You had team and people around you that were managing the ship.
So one thing I have learned to be much better at is delegation. Initially, it was something I had difficulty with because I did not like delegating, but you can't have growth unless it's a skill you learn, and learn it early, but also learn how to teach early, because I would rather do it myself instead of teaching someone else to do it, because I know then it's going to be done properly. But part of this whole thing of entrepreneurship, I think, is the one thing that's going to change like our economy. It's a vital thing to have. And being able to train young people around you to follow an entrepreneurial journey and teach them how to do this, what you're doing, it's important, right? Like, I think that is legacy change. It's what you leave behind, because I would like that to be my legacy, that I have brought up people under me and given them skills that will enable them to have their own businesses one day. It's important.
And how are you able to attract these people? Because I think about like me being in a very early stage in my business, and with starting off, as you know, like resources are limited. So you have to do a lot with a little. And my mentality is, okay, cool, how can I be resourceful to do a lot with a little? And a part of that is attracting talent and people that can help you at this early stage with a long-term view of your success is my success.
Yes.
How are you able to attract these people?
To be fair, I still make mistakes with people. I still sometimes employ the wrong people, but as you know, with every mistake, you learn again. check references, check or check. But I do feel like if you're on the right path, you will find the right people, and they'll like if you're on a high vibration person, you're going to attract high vibrational people. I feel that is just the law of attraction. It is how it will work. You'll meet the right people along your journey, and they'll see things in you if you're that is attractive, that will assist you in your journey. I think it's about attracting through the work you're putting out, what you're putting in, that will attract the right people.
Be you, and others will perhaps see the vision.
100%. They say the flower does not go to the bee. The bee comes to the flower. So you need to work on yourself to be the best, most beautiful flower that exudes this radiance, and the bee will come to you.
Yeah, I'm going to use that. That's so good. The bee will come to you.
Yes.
Going into the investment side of things, because you've started a lot of businesses and you have, kind of like equity in a lot of businesses, do you have to almost wear a different hat when it comes to kind of investing, perhaps in property? And does it require a different mindset shift now to not be this business operator, but like an investor?
So that's a good question, right? So the businesses that I'd started initially, like Alushi Management, didn't necessarily require. So I had a couple. So the florist, the events company, Alushi Models, did not require a huge amount of capital investment because obviously you're dealing, but
service-based businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas my aesthetics business, that's millions and millions because it's machines that cost 3 million for one machine. I have like 3 machines, right? So you need to then keep up to date. It's a costly thing. I would not advise you go into aesthetics because now there are a lot of aesthetics businesses. And in the investments that I chose, and again, this gives away my age, we were taught from a very young age that bricks and mortar, right? So whereas I think you would probably invest your money that you've made in different things. My mindset growing up was you buy a house. That's the best investment you can make because you can see it, it's tangible. And I was lucky but which is not necessarily the best investment now, not at all. But I was lucky in that I had a skill with service. I know how to service people. That sounded very wrong. But I understand people. I understand their needs. And in all my years of traveling that I was lucky to do in my career, I understood what is required in a good, staying in a hotel. So I then turned those properties into Airbnbs that are highly successful and probably making 3 times what I would make from a normal rental property. So I was able to utilize those things. So I'm saying my investments have been in property, but because that's what I thought was good. But I think as you grow, or the younger generation will think very differently as to how to invest their money.
But it's almost, what I'm getting from that is you leveraged your expertise of the service-based businesses and you applied it to your investments in property.
Yes.
And that's how it became successful.
Yes.
You weren't
Correct.
perhaps, getting into something completely new.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know at the time. Like the Airbnb thing was new, kind of. So I've been on Airbnb for close to 10 years now. So it was new when I started, but like I've been fortunate and I've had success with it.
How do you think about generational wealth? Is it something that you think about?
I mean, yeah, it's if you look at a lot of the billionaires now, where Bill Gates started this thing of giving away 95% of their fortune, like so that you can actually, because there's a huge thing in America, right, where it's the oligarchs are in the top 1%, and I completely disagree. We're going back to times. Remember, there was like the monarchy and all of that, and like we're going back to those times where there's such a huge discrepancy. So for me, I think generational wealth, you want to create. I don't believe in that. Honestly, to make like the best you can do is educate your child, feed your child, whatever. But in terms of handing over millions and millions to your children, I don't know. I've seen more damage in that than anything else.
The way I think about it is from a freedom point of view, because a lot of people, if you ask them, as we spoke about earlier, what do you want? It's not the 10 million in the bank account. It's what it can buy you.
Yeah.
Right?
So I believe in educating your children, giving them what they need. But have you not seen this? Because a lot of parents work so that their kids don't have to kind of have. But look at, we mentioned earlier that like the trauma of not having the slight sufferings in life are what drive you. And yes, it's far easier to have success in life because it takes money to make money, right? So I'm not saying like make your kids suffer so that they work hard, but I do believe, and it's far easier to have that and create that. I don't think in South Africa we're seeing that just yet, but
Yeah, I think about it from an opportunities point of view. Not just for myself, but for my family, who also grew up and are very humble in terms of the environment and surroundings. So if I can achieve this financial freedom and provide opportunities that perhaps they would never.
For example, if you look at like I don't know where I saw this, probably like People magazine or something, but I was looking at the ski trip, and it was literally the Kennedys with Obama's kids, and they were like on this like, so if you putting your children in those circles, imagine that network. It was literally this all the like the kids of the really rich, the really political, that we all know. So I think it's more about the opportunities you give. So if you can send your children to St. John's, for example, that's generational wealth. That is giving your kids opportunities they'll never have. I feel then from then on, the opportunities that they make with that's up to them.
100%. And it's also experiences, because
Exactly.
some of my family members haven't been overseas.
Oh, of course, yes.
So experiences from like, if I can, I will provide, if that makes sense.
So yeah, so I absolutely, I think in terms of the experiences, I don't believe in buying your kid like a Porsche when they turn 17. That I'm like viciously opposed to. I think your kids have to earn on their own, but providing experience and putting them in, if you're able to put them in schools where they're networking with, like, do you know how many business deals happened because they went to university with this person and that person? Those things, yes, my God, if you can do that, you're changing your kid's life. And again, like I said, I really do believe in tertiary education, because even though, I mean, I'm a chiropractor, it couldn't apply less to what I do in life. However, I feel the shift in my mindset, it does affect that, right? But imagine going to university, to a Stellenbosch or wherever, and who you're meeting, and that becomes your social network with which you can move further. Yeah.
Something I think about or trying to do is like, by the people that I interview, and if I do a good job at sharing their story of where they started from and how they got to where they are, it will perhaps plant seeds in whoever's listening or watching that they could also do that, because they see themselves in a Shashi.
Yes.
And so then they can also do it, or they can, they're looking behind the curtain.
Maybe that's a good question. Like, what do I do if I want to improve my life? And I was talking about like 3 of my first businesses were not high investment businesses, right? That you don't need a lot of capital. So entrepreneurship is a great way to change your situation. You can't get a job, hustle. So, I mean, even if you're like, have a spaza shop, start somewhere. Like, I was reading an article about this lady that makes chicken in the townships, like how much money she's actually making. I was like, what? These are good numbers. So if things like, if you can't get into university, if you can't like start somewhere, and there are multiple businesses that don't require a lot of capital outlay.
I think that there's no one path to achieve set goals.
100%.
And I think that if you can break that mentality and those limiting beliefs and work through those limited beliefs of what's possible for me, I believe that we can achieve whatever we want to.
Absolutely.
In this season of your life, what drives you?
Because now I guess this is a scary thing to say, but I'm in the autumn of my life, right? So right now I feel there's a lot ahead of me. I don't know. There's an itching feeling that I know that there's one big thing still that I'm going to do. But like we spoke about this period of growth and pushing and whatever, and how equally important a period of rest where you go inward and reflection. this like the yin and the yang, the rest is equally important. Right now, I'm in a phase of rest, but I do know there's something. But that's the thing. Like, I don't know what it is yet. Like, I didn't know I was going to open the modeling agency. Even with the flowers, the way that it happened was just a complete chance. Like, I'm not going to open a business for the sake of doing it. That is a terrible idea, really. But I know something is still coming. I don't know what it is yet. So,
And
it will surprise me as much as it will surprise you.
okay. And are you okay with the not knowing? I think that's something that I struggle with.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I do know, I'm settled in terms of the investment plans that I have. Like, I still have my Airbnbs, I still have my dental clinic, I still have Volusia Aesthetics. So these are still things that I still have. Yeah, I'm okay with not knowing what's next because it needs to come, right? And these things are organic, and especially when you're an entrepreneur. I understand if you're in corporate and you need to have a rigid, structured plan of where you see yourself going. But as an entrepreneur, you're not going to know what it is unless you see it. It'll come to you and it'll be like a brainwave, and then you go. And timing is also essential, all of those things. So yeah, I'm happy with not knowing.
I'm glad to hear that. Sashi, thank you. This has been amazing. The last part of the podcast, we have a closing tradition, which is it's called the fast fire. So
Gosh.
Ask you these.
Should I sip this coffee?
I'm going to ask you these quick questions, and if you could answer in a word or a short sentence, that would be amazing.
Okay.
What's one truth you will continue to live by, regardless of what's happening around you?
Being my authentic self.
One rule you would make that everyone has to follow, no questions asked.
Be kind.
What do you want to let go of in the next season of your life?
Shame.
You want to let go of shame.
Mm-hmm. I think shame is something that holds you back. I feel this thing of like, when you've let people down or when you've made mistakes, and we hold on to these things. So I'd like to let go of shame because, it's something that is heavy within me, and I'd like to release that feeling of shame.
One thing you would say to 20-year-old Sashi right now?
Wear sunscreen.
Why?
Because I would literally sit in the sun, because I was obviously did a lot of eyelid shoots, and I would put like baby oil all over my face and body and lie there and like sizzle like a little chicken sizzling in the oven, and I have like sun damage, so wear bloody sunscreen.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, especially now learning about what the sun does.
Exactly.
Or the light. But yeah, thank you, Sashi. This was very insightful. Thank you for sharing your story with me. Thank you for sharing so openly, candidly, giving us so much wisdom here. But also thank you for the impact that you're making. I think that you're someone that is a trailblazer who starts things, but you continue and you see through and you make it a success. And it's inspiring to learn from you and to follow. And just keep it going. And I'm excited to hear or to see what's next.
What's next? Thank you so much for having me. It's been like an absolute pleasure. Going from really me, the African CEO? Do they really want me? So thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. It's crazy. Even after all the success, there's still a bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, totally. Imposter syndrome is such a thing. It's a big thing. Like, do I deserve these accolades? But here I am, and thank you for having me.
Cool. Thanks, Sashi.